It's been 2 decades since the release of the comedy classic Napoleon Dynamite, and if you were a fan of that movie, you might be forgiven for wondering, what the heck happened to Jon Heder? Fresh off the success of Napoleon Dynamite, Jon Heder made a conscious effort to avoid being typecast. His solution? Get as far away from Napoleon as possible by playing a relatively normal character in a mainstream romantic comedy. In Mark Waters' 2005 rom-com Just Like Heaven, Heder plays Daryl, a spaced-out bookstore clerk who helps Mark Ruffalo's David in his budding romance with a ghost named Elizabeth, played by Reese Witherspoon.
Can't you feel that, man? There's like this cancer-causing ray of spirit hate searing right towards your body.
Daryl and Napoleon couldn't possibly be more different, and Just Like Heaven gave Heder the chance to really show off his range. Reviews were mixed, sadly, but the more positive reactions found the movie to be a charming romantic fantasy flick. A.O. Scott of the New York Times called it impressively nimble and cheery, while Brian Lowry of Variety wrote, Waters ultimately accomplishes the oldest of fairy tale tricks, generating just enough magic to rouse a slumbering movie from its trance, even if the final experience is something less than heaven. After the instant success of Napoleon Dynamite, it didn't take long for Heder to land yet another comedy role. In 2006, he played Clark in The Benchwarmers. The movie sees Clark and 2 of his friends, Richie and Gus, form a baseball team to compete with a group of local bullies.
Oh! That's my Miata! My bad. Kill him!
For Heder, it was a given that he'd play lighter roles after Napoleon Dynamite, and The Benchwarmers certainly fit the bill. As he told MovieWeb, I'm not going to try to get people to cry. Unfortunately, The Benchwarmers wasn't too well received. Today, it holds a dismal 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. The consensus was that, despite being marketed as a comedy, the film simply wasn't that funny. That same year, Heder added a brand new skill to his resume: motion capture. In the animated film Monster House, Heder portrays Reginald Skull Skolinski. Part of the job involved wearing a motion capture suit to bring Skull to life, a form of technology that was relatively new in 2006. Heder explained to MovieWeb that playing Skull was a fun, yet challenging experience. He said, I love being in costume and hair and makeup, you know? It helps so much to be looking like the character. And you're not at all when you've got this wetsuit on with all these dots, and you don't feel like your character and you're not on location. Heder said that it would take hours to get fully ready for a day of motion capture, a process that, among other things, involved having a special helmet glued over his hair. He also revealed that he had particularly enjoyed working alongside his Monster House co-stars, Mitchell Musso and Sam Lerner, despite the fact that they wouldn't stop quoting Napoleon Dynamite at him. Heder had to put in an unusual amount of physical work into 2007's Blades of Glory, which sees his character, Jimmy McElroy, join Will Ferrell's Chaz Michael Michaels to become figure skating's first all-male team.
I'm not skating to anything with references to lady humps? I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
Nevertheless, Heder truly enjoyed bringing Blades of Glory to life. Not only did he appreciate the opportunity to work alongside Ferrell, but he also embraced the ice skating training that they both had to undergo. At one point, however, Heder broke his ankle on set, leading to fears that the production might get shut down.
After I broke my ankle, they borrowed all the safety gear from Nickelodeon, because they're like heavy on the arm pads and the helmets.
Blades of Glory became a hit on its release in 2007. It earned 70% on the Tomato Meter, with many critics in agreement that Heder and Ferrell made the perfect comedy duo. We might not know whether Napoleon Dynamite got a happily ever after with Deb, but in the real world, Jon Heder is definitely enjoying being a family man. In 2007, 5 years after he and his wife Kirsten tied the knot, the couple welcomed their first child, a daughter named Evan Jane. Since the birth of Evan Jane, the Heders have welcomed 3 more children, 2 boys and a girl. On Instagram, the actor often posts photos and videos of his family of 6, such as a Halloween snap from 2017 in which they sported a wide range of costumes, including, of course, Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite. In one interview, Heder told The Hollywood Reporter that despite working in Hollywood, he has been able to lead a normal life at home as a husband and father. He said, "That's what I'm most proud of." In the 2009 web series Woke Up Dead, Heder plays Drex Green, a struggling college student who is forced to reckon with his own resurrection as a zombie. Speaking about the show's unique premise, Heder told Backstage, "The project was the bending of genres. It really attracted me to the idea of a guy becoming a zombie, but he's conscious. So it's completely kind of throwing all the rules out the door. Yet there are the familiar aspects of zombiehood that come to play. According to the show's executive producer, Stan Rogo, Woke Up Dead originally began as a very high-minded concept. He has said that it was intended to be a reimagination of the classic zombie story that served as an allegory for the disconnection of youth. That premise changed over the course of time, however, resulting in a more outlandish zomcom story. Sometimes stardom isn't all that it's cracked up to be, and it certainly wasn't something that Jon Heder aspired to when he set out to become an actor.
How was school?
Worst day of my life? What do you think?
After the runaway success of Napoleon Dynamite, however, Heder was thrust into the spotlight. Sadly, after a while, the negative aspects of fame started to weigh heavy on his mind. In 2021, he told The Hollywood Reporter, "About 10 years ago, maybe more, I was letting it bother me a lot more. I felt like I was always having to deal with it and tell people why people can't treat you this way. It really got to my head." Eventually, Heder was able to alter his mindset and think more positively about his situation. He continued, "I just didn't want to be bothered by it anymore. I know that sounds simple, but it really helped me change my perspective. Now, for example, Heder welcomes strangers who approach him on the street because they're a fan of his work. He feels proud of films like Napoleon Dynamite and Blades of Glory and is able to find happiness in knowing that they had such an impact on people. At the same time, however, he says he has no interest whatsoever in becoming more famous." Napoleon Dynamite might be a staple in pop culture, but even the biggest fans probably won't remember the extremely short-lived cartoon of the same name that aired on Fox in 2012. Jon Heder and the entire cast of the original film voiced their respective characters on the show. According to co-developer, producer, and writer Mike Scully, the show's creators walked a fine line between maintaining the quirky nature of the movie and picking up the pace to make it work for animation. He told Flickering Myth, "We knew it would have to be faster and more visual, while still remaining true to the tone and characters of the film. We wanted to keep the small-town feel." Sadly, Napoleon Dynamite was canceled by Fox after a mere 6 episodes, despite it ranking number 6 in the top 10 programs watched by teens at the time. Still, the show's abrupt cancellation didn't deter Heder's desire to take on more voice work. He lent his voice to a number of projects in 2012 alone, and has continued to work steadily as a voice actor in the years since. Heder's live-action career took something of a backseat as he shifted his focus to voice acting. That said, he did take another stab at dramatic acting with 2015's Walt Before Mickey, a biopic about Walt Disney's life in the years before creating Mickey Mouse. Heder plays Walt's brother, Roy Disney, who helps him found his legendary animation studio. Despite its promising concept, Walt Before Mickey was hindered by financial limitations and production issues. First-time director Kwa Lei took over while filming on the low-budget feature was already underway in Orlando, Florida. Reportedly, the previous director had been let go due to the pace at which they were shooting. But Lei's appointment didn't solve every problem on the 25-day shoot, which was plagued with crew walk-offs, location damage, and payroll issues. The myriad production problems would likely have been overlooked had the resulting film been anything to write home about. Unfortunately, Walt Before Mickey was panned by the few critics who saw it. Movie Nation, for example, wrote, "The dialogue is dull, boilerplate corn, the performances are flat, the cinematography is flatter." Jon Heder always felt like an outsider during his years living in Hollywood. Compared to his home state of Oregon, it was a completely different world. In one interview, Heder gushed about his small-town childhood.
I loved it. I'm obsessed with it. I always tell people like how much, if I could match that childhood for my own kids or whatever, I love that.
This is why, in the midst of the pandemic, the Heder family moved to Washington State, right outside of Portland, Oregon. Though he does miss California and considers himself to be a Hollywood guy at heart, Heder's current setting is exactly what he envisioned for him and his family. He told The Hollywood Reporter, "I had always imagined this more of a picturesque life for us and a place with my family, with 4 seasons, in a much more normal environment rather than raising them in Hollywood." Heder admitted that he sometimes feels like an outsider in Washington as well, but he's come to realize that this isn't such a bad thing. He's now able to be part of 2 worlds, enjoying both a Hollywood career and a quieter setting with his family. For a while, after his move from Hollywood, it seemed like Heder's career was winding down, but he didn't disappear entirely. He appeared in the 2021 holiday flick, Funny Thing About Love, and while this project was somewhat more wholesome than some of Heder's previous movies, he seemed to have no problem with that. Speaking about adult-humored comedies in general, Heder told The Hollywood Reporter, "The pendulum is always swinging, but there are a lot of people out there who live their lives a certain way and they don't invite that in. But with this film, there is a cleanliness that feels wholesome and nice." Heder explained that audiences should relate to the core themes of Funny Thing About Love. He added, "In our society nowadays, too, so many people are online looking for love or to find their match. At the holidays, people really want that someone special, and this film really speaks to that." As you might expect, Napoleon Dynamite remains Jon Heder's favorite film of his decades-long career. In an interview with HuffPost, he said, "Obviously, it's my biggest film. To this day, I'm pinching myself. Like, I made a movie and people saw it. More than a few people." Heder said that he is proud to be part of a film that brings such a strong sense of nostalgia to adults who first saw it as kids or teens, similar to how he feels about movies from his own adolescence. He's also proud to have represented a different kind of nerd, one who isn't super smart or desperate to fit in. Rather, Napoleon marches to the beat of his own drum. Heder explained, "He doesn't know how much of an outcast he is, and that's what gives him that confidence. He's trying to be cool sometimes, but mostly he just goes for it and does it."
What are you gonna do today, Napoleon?
Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh!
Decades may have passed since Heder shared the screen with the cast of Napoleon Dynamite, but he still reunites with them for the occasional project. In 2016, for example, he and Efren Ramirez appeared in a Burger King commercial to promote the chain's Cheesy Tots.
Dang it, those are good.
Celebrating the movie's 20th anniversary at the 2024 Sundance Film Festival, Heder, Ramirez, and Uncle Rico actor Jon Gries got together to film a segment for social media. Heder captioned the post, "20 years strong and we're still as hot as the tots in my pocket burning my thigh." It's now been 2 decades since Napoleon Dynamite first lit up the indie movie circuit. It's crazy to think that Jon Heder and his co-stars are all well into their 40s and 50s now, although age has done nothing to change their dynamic. Need proof? Take a look at the film's 20th anniversary tour. Heder traveled around the country with Efren Ramirez and Jon Gries to show the film to huge crowds of fans, many of whom dressed as their favorite characters for the occasion. Speaking with NBC North Carolina, Ramirez admitted, "We didn't realize how big the movie was. When we showed up to these screenings, they were sold-out shows." At one screening in Orlando, Heder revealed a shocking secret about Napoleon's legendary boogie to Jamiroquai's Canned Heat. In the event's Q&A, he said, "It was all freestyle. You suckers who tried to learn the moves and do it for your middle school talent show wasted time. Should've just felt the love. Put on some sweet tunes and just feel the flow. That's what I did." Napoleon Dynamite and Pedro Sanchez go together like tater tots and ketchup. So it shouldn't be surprising that the actors who brought them to life work together just as well. In 2024, Jon Heder and Efren Ramirez took a break from their Napoleon Dynamite 20th anniversary tour to shoot a back-to-school ad for Gap Kids, playing off the personas that made them famous. In a video posted to Instagram, they spoke about their involvement as first-time choreographer, in Heder's case, and first-time director, in Ramirez's. Neither were accustomed to these roles, but getting out of their comfort zone was the whole point of the ad. The accompanying caption read, "Together with our cast, this dream team shows their combined superpower, being and believing in yourself." The ad itself, entitled Just Dance, features a group of Gap-clad kids rocking out to, you guessed it, Canned Heat by Jamiroquai.
You're gonna go dance with him? What? You don't even know how to dance. Just do it from your heart.
Heder recently stepped into the recording booth for Thelma the Unicorn, which reunited him with Napoleon Dynamite writing-directing team Jared and Jerusha Hess. The Netflix release centers on a pink pony named Thelma who becomes an overnight singing sensation after being transformed into a unicorn. Heder voices Reggie, a llama who, along with Otis, the donkey, forms a successful band with Thelma. Thelma the Unicorn received solid reviews from critics when it made its streaming debut on Netflix in the spring of 2024. Variety wrote, "Netflix's Thelma the Unicorn avoids being rendered completely unoriginal by its overly familiar premise thanks to consistent splashes of acid humor and a plethora of wacky supporting characters." Heder hasn't performed much in front of the camera in the last 2 decades, opting instead to focus primarily on voiceover work. That said, he has made a few live-action appearances in recent years, including a starring role in the 2024 comedy Plan B. The movie stars Jamie Lee as Piper, a woman who gets pregnant after a drunken one-night stand with her awkward neighbor, Evan, who is played by Heder. Plan B premiered to little fanfare on VOD. It wasn't screened for critics, nor did it play at any festivals. But for anyone who's curious to see what Heder looks like 2 decades after Napoleon Dynamite premiered, this movie is waiting for you to rent. In the 20 years since becoming a star, Jon Heder has put most of his focus on growing his family with his wife, Kirsten. Of course, the couple's 4 children may have grown up wondering why so many strangers kept asking their father if he wanted tater tots. And as they've gotten older, it's become increasingly difficult for Heder to hide his famous alter ego from them. Luckily for him, they kind of like the guy.
Gosh!
In an interview with E! News, Heder acknowledged that his children had become aware of his Napoleon Dynamite persona, adding that they're even fans of the film. He said, "They're very aware of the craze. My daughter actually enjoys it. She's 7. She's like, 'Oh, can we watch clips from the movie?' His 10-year-old son, meanwhile, enjoys watching his dad get recognized in public." Heder added, he understands it for the fame aspect. "I don't know if he cares that much about the movie, but he loves to tell people who I am." In the 20 years since Napoleon Dynamite became a cult sensation, one question has plagued its fans. Will we ever get a sequel? There have been rumors over the years, but nothing has come to fruition. Yet the rumors have intensified recently, with even Jon Heder hinting that something might be in the works. Heder has been in conversation with co-writer-director Jared Hess about a possible follow-up that would take the character in a darker direction. Speaking at a Wizard World panel, he said, "I feel like the future for Napoleon would be a lot more raw and edgy. So whatever Jared comes up with would be fun to explore." Speaking in 2023 at Steel City Con in Pittsburgh, Heder speculated about how Napoleon's life might look in a sequel, explaining, "Part of the charm of Napoleon is the innocence of youth. They're in high school. They don't have any real responsibility or accountability to much. It's all coming of age. Napoleon today would be, he's entered the workforce, he's got responsibility, he's paying for maybe 1 or 2 alimonies, child support for one of them. So, will we ever get a chance to see Napoleon in middle age? According to Pedro himself, we just might." Speaking to comicbook.com in 2024, Efren Ramirez acknowledged the possibility, saying, "Everyone wants a sequel. I can say this, legally, that the door's not closed yet."